Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for purchasing this or any watch you see on our Watchbox platforms. Reach out to me directly for pricing. Email me at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Launched in 2004 and built through 2015, this is the second generation Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph. This watch, gorgeous, is 42 millimeters in rose gold, remarkably thin at 12.5 millimeters thick, given what you get in this case, and 50.5 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip across the wrist. As you can see, the case has a little bit of a camber, almost like a tonneau, and truthfully, the watch is a hybrid of a tonneau and a round case. So though it's fairly broad across the wrist, that curvature to the lugs means it wears well on a small wrist. I could even encourage this watch on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and you can see with its cupped case back, it nestles down low, even lower than 12.5 millimeters when it is on the wrist, and it has a sloped case band that allows a sleeve to ramp up over it. I would even say that this is a borderline unisex option, so if you're a lady with a taste for larger watches and you're willing to hazard a dalliance with a man's style and size, this might be an outstanding option. This watch is very Miami, warm, handsome, emotional, endearing. It's the kind of watch you'd expect to see on the French or Italian Riviera, Miami Beach, or LA's Sunset Strip. Now, taking a quick look at the strap, you can see it's fully integrated into the case. You can have several options. You can get a bracelet for this watch, you can get leather, but the rubber one, the brown rubber strap, to me is the one to get. Because it looks as integrated as the bracelet, it's just as handsome and coherent to my eye. It's thick, so it's not going to tear, and it's held in place with screws and bars, which I like to see because it offers more security than spring bars. On the underside, you can see that there are a little bit of evacuations to allow the wrist to breathe better and also relieve the material a bit, making it more pliant and flexible on the wrist. We have several different references to the Vacheron Maltese Cross logo. You can see the double deployant clasp has that Maltese Cross motif inside. It also has both polishing and media blasted finish internally. It is a double fold, and it has twin trigger release. So the buckle, which has a Maltese Cross faceting on it, is twin trigger. You have to press both to open it up so it can't accidentally pop off. And just to be extra safe, Vacheron uses a screw rather than a pin to hold the strap inside the buckle. Rolling back to the case, you can see that there's a little bit of a channel that is molded into the strap to give it definition. Then we have, once again, the Maltese Cross as the interlink between lug and strap. The case is beautifully hand-finished, and in my opinion, the second generation case was the high watermark for for Vacheron case design. AP should be so lucky as to have a watch this handsome and innovative, as they've been iterating the Royal Oak forever. This was a real step forward. Vacheron, prior to 1996, had no real modern sports watch tradition. Their last true sports watch went out of production in the mid-80s. That was the 222. This watch is inspired by the 222, but the Vacheron Overseas was designed as a collaboration between contract designer Dino Modolo and Vacheron's own Vincent Kaufman. The second generation watch took the Overseas from the 90s, and it made it larger. It was effectively, to the original Overseas, what an offshore is to a Royal Oak. So this watch is both a competitor to the offshore and the standard Royal Oak chronograph. It has more water resistance than either of them. The case includes a combination of polishing and satination for contrast, with a bevel that expands along the lugs and runs all the way around the case. One of the reasons I like this generation better than the third is because the bezel sits right on the case top. The third generation features this circular plinth underneath the bezel that adds both literal and visual thickness to the watch. Now, the bezel features that Maltese Cross toothing, and then you can see it's polished outboard, but the recesses are satinated for contrast. We have a little bit of a knurling on the screw downs for the chronograph pushers as well as the crown, which is designed to evoke the Maltese Cross, but not as much as the literal Maltese Cross that you can see on the crown itself. Screw-down crown, 150 meters of water resistance. The dial has a silver satin-finished Ray-Hot outboard that can be used for reading seconds, fractions of seconds, or minutes, and then inboard you can see it features a sort of cross-hatching that's almost a herringbone pattern on the silver dial base, sunken registers including a big eye chronograph minutes, which you can see is larger than chronograph hours or constant seconds. We have chronograph hands that are blackened, and then we have time-telling hands that are rose gold. There are polished rose gold chapter rings for each of the sub-registers, which are sunken into the dial to add depth. We have Maltese Cross in red gold up at the top of the dial, as well as a double-digit date, which sadly was lost in the transition from second to third generation chronograph. Now, The watch has a quick set for the date. It does not feature a hacking seconds function, but it has almost every other function you can conceive. Inside the case is a Frederic Piguet 1185 integrated automatic vertical clutch and column wheel, high horology hand-finished chronograph caliber. The 1185 is thin, fine, hand-finished, adjusted in 5 positions, automatic winding, unidirectional winding with a 40-hour power reserve, and as I mentioned, it has a column wheel for crisp action. You feel it. You hear it, and it has a vertical clutch, so there's no jump or stagger to the chronograph seconds hand when it starts up. Also, due to the vertical clutch, you can leave the chronograph running full-time with no hazard to the movement. The 37-jewel movement is nicely decorated, and though you can't see it underneath the case back, rest assured it is finished to a high horology standard befitting a Vacheron. It beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and one of the reasons you can't see it is because it is surrounded by a solid soft iron cage, and a paramagnetic cage that channels magnetic field lines around the hairspring, protecting the watch against magnetic fields of up to 25,000 amperes per meter. Now, there are several different finishes on the case back. You can see polishing, you could see a radial brushed pattern, you could see circular satination, and then there's a chiseling that acts as the sky. The ship is actually based on the Italian naval training vessel Amerigo Vespucci, which is a gorgeous square-rigged ship. Some opine that it is the most beautiful sailing ship in the world, and the timepiece is quite solid, 150 meters water-resistant, anti-magnetic, and beautifully executed inside and outside. We'll do a quick loom shot because this watch is quite well loomed, and you can see it easily at night. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.